virtual meetup of the new Embedded Analytics Tableau user group. This is our first virtual meetup, and we're very happy to have you guys here. My name is Thad Wellington, and along with Jeff James, will be your hosts for the next hour or so. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. As we're going through the session, if you guys have questions, please use the Q&A link. You'll find it on your screen as you hover over. And you can ask any questions that you may have there, and we will have a Q&A section at the end where we can answer those questions for you. If you'd like to chat along with other folks in the session, please do so using the chat link. But if you have questions directly for the panelists, please go ahead and use that Q&A link on your screen. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeff right now. Jeff's going to kick us off with some introductions, and then we'll go right into the session. Hopefully we didn't lose Jeff.
Dual mutes, sorry. So anyway, thanks. So I'm Jeff James. I'm a solution strategist with Cerner Corporation. In terms of our utilization, we've got a global software as a service deployment. We've got 5 production clusters in various regions around the world. We've got 180 clients currently participating in our solutions, but those aren't just single organizations. We're in the healthcare business, and each of those clients may represent 30 plus individual hospitals and hundreds of outpatient locations. So fairly wide scale deployment. Overall, in terms of the groups, things that I'm real interested in are what we can do to work with the REST API and automation so that we can deploy and provide content across all of those organizations, and then continued work on embedding so that we can deliver all of that content through our applications. So, Chad, you want to do yours?
Yeah, again, my name's Thad Wellington. I'm a product manager with Gray Hair Software. Gray Hair Software is a small company that does a lot of business with the largest financial institutions in the U.S., insurance companies, that kind of thing. We provide mail tracking and address hygiene solutions for them. Our deployment of Tableau is all customer facing. Currently moving to use it on an AWS platform rather than on-premise to kind of allow ourselves to scale a little bit more. Our big focus, obviously being portal-based, is JavaScript, REST, doing direct Postgres calls to the system, and also expanding the use of embedded Tableau into our portal across different applications. Jeff, back to you.
All right. Yep. Great. You want to go on to the next one? We'll just talk about things. So this group was originally an OEM-focused group, and we were really looking at people who were reselling and SaaS deployments, things like that. But the market's changed somewhat, and Tableau's view of the market has changed. So we've kind of expanded that definition because we have a lot of new potential participants who are doing portal development, whether that's B2B, B2C, or even internal deployments across large organizations where there's a lot of work embedding the tools, using the APIs, and doing some things that are above and beyond sort of the standard use cases of a departmental deployment with an admin and a set of analysts who are using the tool. So I would say that our participants were really more expecting developers, product managers, or people who were in similar roles. They may not be called those things in internal deployments, rather than sort of the standard Tableau normal users. So the big thought here is that with the forum, we'll be able to share some techniques, share some challenges that are unique to this space, and hopefully we can pass some knowledge back and forth between us. And as a group, if we can come together, we can hopefully influence Tableau's product direction more if we have this forum where we can share information back and forth. I know that in some of the other industries that I work with, it works really well if we can pool those things, because each of us asking for stuff individually won't be as persuasive as the group of us coming together with some common use cases and problems that we're trying to work through. So hopefully we'll be doing some things on a regular basis, quarterly, give or take, and we'll have a lot of opportunity to expand on some of these things after hopefully some of you have been able to think about that some when we get together with hopefully most of you at the Tableau conference in a couple of weeks. So with that transition, I'll pass it back to Thad to talk about some of the things that may be of interest to the group as a whole at the conference.
Thanks, Jeff. Real quick before we do dive into conference, I did want to mention that if you're not already aware, there is an embedded analytics community site. It is the URL is right there on the screen for you. We are already starting to post a couple of things on there. There is a lot of history from the old OEM group on there as well that may be of interest to you if you're not already active on that community. And in just a moment, I'm going to show that to you so that we can take a look at some of the stuff that we have on that site so that you're aware of that, as well as the things that we have for coming up for Tableau conference. So let's take a jump over to that screen. So this is the Embedded Analytics Community Group, and you'll find lots of resources on here from the old user group that was there, and we're hoping to get a lot more activity on here from everybody who's joined this call, as well as folks that we'll see at TC in just a couple of weeks. So along with Tableau Conference, we have taken a dive into some of the sessions, and if you haven't done so already, you already probably know that there's well over 350 different sessions that are available for you to attend. And what we've done is gone through and just made a quick list of about 20 different sessions that we recommend. You'll find those listed here on the site. We've broken them down by sessions that are focused around APIs, sessions that are focused around extensions, which we're going to hear about in just a little bit. We've got a few sessions in here specifically on embedding and portals as well. So when you have an opportunity, feel free to dive in, take a look at that list. You'll find the links directly to the descriptions on the TC18 site. And then, of course, we want to recommend that you, if you haven't already, that you download the TC18 app. And you can get that on the Apple Store or on Google Play. Download that. Make sure that you log in with your TC18 credentials. You'll be able to set up your schedule. You'll be able to connect with other folks who are actually attending TC18. You'll be able to find all the information that you need to right there. What we'd like to ask of you is, if you would, one of the first things you do is add the Tableau Embedded Meetup, which will be on Tuesday at 12:30. And we would love to see everybody there, get a chance to put some faces to some of the names that have already been in the group. Jeff and I will both be there along with some other folks. We intend to have a panel session there where you'll actually be able to ask some questions of some folks in industry. And we'll actually post a discussion shortly after this session on what questions you might want to ask folks who've been in the industry for a while and who are already knowledgeable about using embedded analytics, and what things that you would be interested in knowing, so that we can take some of those questions and bring those to the panelists during our meetup on Tuesday during Tableau conference. Okay, and with that, I'm actually going to make sure I covered everything here. Once again, Tableau Embedded Meetup.
Yeah, so one thing about that, we've got the meetup on Tuesday. We also have the user group meeting, which is Thursday morning. So we've actually got two get-togethers. The meetup is just sort of a more informal thing where we can get together and talk about things, and then we'll have the panel is actually on Thursday.
Okay, my apologies for the confusion there, folks. Thanks for the clarification, Jeff. Jeff, was there anything else that you wanted to mention about Tableau Conference?
No, I would say, one thing to remember, there is a ton of content. I pretty much every hour, I have more than one thing that I'd like to go see. So if you're going to try prioritizing things, I always try and prioritize the hands-on sessions rather than the regular sessions, because the regular sessions are all recorded and you can watch them after the fact. Whereas the hands-on sessions, just because of the nature of what they are, you have to be there to participate. They don't record those. So the only real way to do it is to go. They also tend to fill up fastest. So as Thad said, you'd want to download the app and get them on your schedule and get registered for those sessions so that you have at least the option to go attend those things. But overall, it's a great opportunity for learning. This will be my fifth, I think, and it's really a worthwhile investment of time and energy.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. This will be my third year going, and I've learned something new every single year I've gone. And it also kind of gets you energized and brings back a lot of great ideas from not just the sessions, but some of the breakouts that you might have with just talking with folks in different meetups and even at lunch. It's a great experience all around.
Yeah, I mean, the networking is one of the biggest parts of it, not just the content, but seeing all the people and seeing what they're doing is a really great opportunity.
Okay. And we've talked about that. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Reed, who is going to give us an overview of the extensions API.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen here. All right, WaferViz. So can you see my screen now? All right,
You're good.
cool. All right, excellent. So basically, I wanted to talk a little bit about the extensions API and really from kind of a emerging beginner's perspective, a little bit of the consulting perspective, and specifically what I want to sort of give us an overview of is how we're going to use this and whether to use it specifically for custom visualizations, which is one of those cases where I hear about the extensions API from my clients a lot. For everybody on the phone, just an introduction. My name is Reed Walton, and I'm a consultant here at Tableau Software. I work with our clients who have externally facing applications and are delivering analytics to external users. And a lot of that is about leveraging our APIs and extensibility to try to get that right experience that those users want to get. And so part of that is how we tackle these edge case visualizations. So what we see a lot is Tableau has a really good capability to tackle kind of a best fit of data visualizations with sort of the most common tools, bars and lines and plots and points on a scatter plot. These are kind of the ways most people see and understand their data. But when I go out and I talk to a lot of different users, I see that beyond that, there's a whole world of different niches where we have some very specific ways to visualize data. And this is an example that came to me through such a client, and this is a very specific data visualization, and it's used in the field of semiconductor manufacturing. And what we're looking at here, it's way beyond me technically, but what we're really looking at in this data visualization is in the background, we have these rectangles that are showing us these fields, and then we have all these arrows that are showing us the results of the accuracy by which we printed these semiconductors onto these silicon wafers. So this is something that is, it's very specific to one use case, but it is very much a Tableau use case, and that seeing and understanding this data is very important. If you can see kind of this field of vectors and how they kind of move down and to the right, the viewer to look at that and get that overall impression is very important. So it is an important data visualization, and it was a great example of something where we might consider whether or not this is something we want to use the extensions API to visualize or use Tableau out of the box. So first of all, when I'm going to consult with somebody, I'm going to ask, do we want to use an extension for this visualization, or do we want to use what we kind of have in Tableau already? And that process is that we're going to kind of look at what workarounds we already have. So if we want to visualize all of our arrows here on this wafer viz, we can use some of the things Tableau already has. This, for example, is a line, and that line is showing sort of a vector, and it's using kind of the width of that line to kind of show the directionality by making one end of the line thicker than the other end. And in that sense, we can kind of get a sense of movement in our vector. Or if we wanted to visualize a vector in Tableau another way, this is an example by Bora Baran. This is using a custom polygon to draw an actual arrow shape out of some custom data, and we're going to assemble that in Tableau that way. So there are always kind of workarounds, depending on what we're working with in Tableau, to use Tableau's existing mark types, shapes, lines, things like that, to kind of get the visualization we want. Although Tableau doesn't natively have the vector type, which is what these arrows are, and that showing that directionality is what's really important, how the user is going to get the answers out of that viz. So we're going to think about this and say, would it be better to try to make it work kind of with the workaround we have with Tableau's tools, or should we build something new and custom leveraging this brand new API that Tableau has released for us? So what is a Tableau extension? You're going to hear a ton about them at conference. If you go, you're going to see a lot of stuff about extensions. If you look at the release notes for 2018.2, which is the version that Tableau's extensions were released with, we can go ahead and check out kind of our gallery here on our website, and you'll notice that they are ways to kind of build in little things that Tableau Desktop doesn't quite do. Extensions are a way where we can build any functionality that we can build out of JavaScript and make a little website for and just drop right in our dashboard. So functionality like we might want some data write back to live right there in the dashboard or live right there in a pop-up, and we can do that with an extension. Or just to show kind of a sample of some other kind of custom visualizations that people have built, you can see this is an extension where people have built sort of the sand key diagrams, which is something that's been requested from some sectors, or specific charts that Tableau doesn't typically do out of box, like a radar chart or network diagrams or things like that. These are all great use cases for extensions that are already kind of made by third parties, and they're available to download from our extensions gallery. And that's basically what an extension is. It's taking something else, either functionality or some way to visualize or something like that, and just writing it so we can just put that arbitrarily into our dashboard. To get started with the Extensions API, if we were going to get started on sort of just developing with the Extensions API, we could jump out to our resources here from our developer community, or this is from our development team. And they have a lot of great stuff here. They've got documentation and references and samples. They have a lot of really helpful examples that kind of take you through some helpful workflows and how to construct these and how to solve some of the most common problems. There's really a lot of great content here. If you were interested in just kind of getting your hands on and getting started, I would definitely recommend checking this out and going ahead and grabbing this stuff. And they've got a lot of great sort of tutorials there. To give you a summary of what that experience is like of getting started, first of all, just to let you know what you would need to install is you would need we need to install Tableau Desktop. 2018.2 is the version that Extensions is officially supported with. We're also going to use Node.js and NPM. If you're not familiar with Node.js, it's from kind of the full stack JavaScript world, and it is a JavaScript runtime. And we are going to use it in the capacity of developing a Tableau extension. We're going to use Node.js to kind of host our extension locally on our machine while we're developing it. When an extension is used in production, it's going to be hosted like a miniature website up on a server, possibly our Tableau server, or possibly a third server. And we're also going to download the Extensions API SDK. This is up on our Tableau GitHub. It's also going to be linked from that page I just showed you with the resources. And if we download and install these things, we can have a nice local development environment where we can make extensions right on our machine. So what are the parts of an extension? First, we have kind of a manifest, and I'll just link out to this folder here. These are right here in my Tableau repository on my machine. I've got a couple of these manifest files. They're this .trex. And then if we go ahead and open these up, I'll just give you a quick glance at what they look like. And they are basically just this XML that is showing us just some metadata about what this extension is. It's got a description. It's got kind of an author name. This is one that comes out as an example out of the box. It's from Tableau. And critically, it's also showing us the location of this extension. So this is where this extension is going to be hosted when we actually want to be accessing it from Tableau Desktop. And you'll notice, because this is just local development, just getting started, these are all hosted at localhost, because this is that Node.js server that's running locally on my machine and giving me access to my extension. We also, in addition to the manifest, which kind of points to the extension and gets us introduced to it, we also are just going to have our HTML and JavaScript. So basically just a little website. Here, for example, we just have our data sources.html. This is a page that's going to be almost empty. It's going to basically have just a basic framework of a web page, and then all the functionality of what we want to actually do with our extension is all going to be written in this JavaScript file. That's the principal way we're going to get that to work on the client side, and in that dashboard is going to be like a miniature browser that's going to browse this website and use it, and it's going to be able to interact with the rest of our dashboard. All right, so if we're going to talk about how we're going to make this wafer visualization, make an extension that's going to accomplish this wafer visualization, and I think by extension, all of the questions that we're going to want to ask about any custom visualization are going to come down to a couple of different things. They're going to be, how can I get and shape the data that I need to make this visualization? And then also, how do I draw this picture? So literally, you have to sort of start thinking about the details of how to construct the actual form out of sort of starting from scratch rather than using Tableau out of the box. And then here, the critical parts of this visualization is we have behind, you kind of see those light green, blue green rectangles in the background. Those are our fields. Those are going to be defined in our data by their positions, X and Y, offset from a center. And then we also have all of our vectors, which are our arrows. Those are in our data as their starting point, and they also have a length and direction. And there might be some differences here as far as you might represent a vector by just that length and direction, or you might represent it by a start point and an end point, kind of depending on how you have that data shaped. But yeah, getting back to these essential elements, we have some pretty good methods within the Tableau Extensions API. We can grab data from dashboard sheets or from Tableau data sources in order to use that to make the custom visualization we need. And we can also get user input from existing parameter controls maybe, or we can do other methods like an interface we can code with our extension, or we can make like a pop-up window, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But basically, there's a lot of opportunities in that API to get what we need. And then we need to tackle this problem of visualization in JavaScript. How do I draw this picture now that I have these numbers? There's a few tools out there I might recommend getting started if you wanted to go ahead and try to tackle a custom visualization on your own. One way is sort of several JavaScript visualization libraries that are out there. So we have Paper.js. It's very detailed. I would say this is the most complete vector graphics library that's out there. You can do a lot with it. It also has a little bit of a higher learning curve of some of the other tools that I had looked at, because it's so detailed, and because if you want to work in Paper.js, you'll be working very granularly at the level of individual points and lines in terms of drawing things with that code. There's also there's also libraries that are a little bit simpler. One is 2JS. This is a two-dimensional drawing library. It's more minimal. It has fewer objects and methods than Paper.js does. I found it much easier to learn, but there's that trade-off. It doesn't do as much. So there's kind of a roadblocks of what you can really do with it. One that I thought was kind of a really interesting third option, kind of somewhere in the middle, was this p5.js from processing. So processing was kind of an educational project going back many years at MIT, and this is kind of the evolution of that. It has kind of a good amount of functionality because over the years, there's been a lot of extensions and plugins built for it. And it also has, particularly for a beginner who's just getting started with this, it has a very novice-friendly community. That's one of the reasons why I do recommend it for people who are just beginners and getting started, is it has a pretty good balance of that functionality and being able to get started. I did not use it in this project, but I would think I would be very curious to start using that in some extensions projects in the future. So to give us a look at what we are able to do with that extensions API, we're going to look at those kind of issues. And I'm going to look at that with my client and say, what do we want to do with our extension? If we are able to see kind of a path of putting those fields together and putting those vectors together with marks from Tableau, maybe we want to make some custom polygons, maybe we want to use lines to show the vector, that could be, we should assess the capability of that. And kind of weigh these in two ways. That's going to have a limitation in that it's not going to be exactly the visualization we want. It's also going to take maybe that extra work of that data shaping to maybe make those custom polygons. You might be doing some calculated fields, or you might be doing something like putting a custom shape in for, you have a 360 different shapes, one that's pointing every direction around the compass or something like that. And that might just feel kind of clunky and not really a preferable workflow. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing, and versus this wide open field of functionality of the extensions world where you can build anything that you can code. And so those are kind of how we're going to weigh the functionality and openness we get with extensions versus kind of the connectedness with the rest of the platform we get from developing in desktop. One other important aspect is that all the features in Tableau are implicitly connected when we're doing out of box. So for example, if we went through a sort of a workaround to make our custom arrows and we got those and that works but took us some time, our Tableau color palettes and such are right there. Versus when we build an extension, if we just draw ourselves how we want to draw the extension, well, then we run into this issue of, well, I'm not connected to my Tableau color palette anymore. How important is that? That's an important thing to think about as well. But just to give you a look at sort of how elaborate this stuff is in terms of the detail, it's not too bad. To get my wafer viz here, we're looking at a JavaScript file that, you know, it's a couple hundred lines maybe. We won't dive into the details here. An HTML file that's minimal, really solving just the basic problems of the geometry of how to draw the picture we want is really where most of the hours went in terms of, from my perspective, as sort of a novice JavaScripter who's not a math whiz. That was sort of my perspective on it. So I thought that in the end, the process of doing kind of a rapid prototype here is really pretty manageable. And I'll show you what we're able to do with just kind of a limited amount of time kind of exploring developing an extension. If I go ahead and in Tableau desktop here, if I have my dashboard, I can draw that extension on there. And it's going to drop onto the dashboard just like any other object, like a sheet or a blank square or a web part, but it's going to pop out to our folder here to then grab that manifest. And then we'll go ahead and drop that extension in there. And you can see our fields are drawn from the data, and we also are able to draw all these arrows. This is showing a little too densely, so we went ahead and added a parameter in there to get the scale right. And we also are able to get that in a workflow with this configuration pop-up. So I can go ahead and adjust the scale of my wafer, and then we're able to redraw it at the different size. Again, because all of that is under your control when you're making an extension. And so I would say with a few hours, we can kind of get a look at what we're able to get out of the gate with in terms of can we get this done, and also get an idea of how difficult it is versus what we'd be accepting on the other side by staying in Tableau and getting our custom visualization done over in the Tableau out-of-box way. So that's kind of a run through of kind of what that decision-making process is like for some of my users who are maybe seeing this emerging world of extensions, kind of the newest member of our extensibility family, our newest API. And that's kind of the journey. I would say if you want to get going more with extensions, I think there's going to be a lot of great content about it at TC. It's going to have a really high presence there. You're going to start seeing a lot of great use cases that people are presenting. If you want to take a look at some of the great stuff that's out there, check out that gallery that we took a look at. If you want to get started, check out those resources with tutorials. They've got a lot of great tips, a lot of great help from our developers here. And that's kind of the story with extensions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Reed.
Yep, no problem.
All right. I am going to grab that. Okay, so now we open up for any questions that you may have out there about what you've heard so far or anything that Reed discussed. Don't see any questions just yet in here. That's fine. One thing I did want to mention that we forgot to say about Tableau Conference is that if you're unable to attend conference, make sure that you do visit tc18.tableau.com. You guys will actually be able to find TC Live there, where you will find all of the recorded sessions or all the sessions that are available to be recorded. So you can watch those as soon as they're completed. They'll go up on that site, and you guys will be able to attend those sessions virtually if you're not able to make it in person. Okay. Jeff, did you have anything else that you wanted to go over?
Now let's, I guess, so Reed, just thinking through your presentation, you mentioned a bunch of libraries, but one of the things that you didn't mention was D3, which is historically at least been one of the biggest visualization libraries. I know pre-extensions, that's what I used when I needed to embed something custom inside one of my workbooks. Has there been a change, or
oh no, absolutely.
Where's that all fall?
There's in the JavaScript world, and this is kind of what JavaScript opens up to us, is this whole world of different libraries that are out there in JavaScript. The ones that I mentioned on my slide there were kind of specifically drawing libraries. They're kind of for free form when we want to draw just directly out of lines and points and shapes and things like that. In that D3 category, over in that zone, there are also a lot of great categories in that capacity as well that kind of focus more on the data visualization space in particular. I think a lot of those that you're going to see some stuff that has a lot of kind of overlap with, maybe there are some that do just like bars out of the box, and there's a lot of charting libraries. There's also D3, which has a little bit more of a broader functionality. In general, there are libraries in JavaScript to do all kinds of different things. I think you'll find libraries that are kind of specific more for some aspects of like infographics and design like that, and there's just libraries for a lot of just custom niche functionality as well. And kind of, yeah.
Okay, we did have a question come through. This is specific to the extensions gallery. Are they currently created only by Tableau staff, or are community members also contributing?
In that gallery, we have a mix of Tableau produced extensions and also some extensions that have been produced by some third-party partners. I think you'll start to see what's available there start to expand. For example, the screenshot I showed of the extension with the custom visualizations and the Sankey diagrams, that is produced by a third-party partner.
Okay, great.
Cool.
All right, I think that's all the questions that we have this time. Talking about future, just want to remind everyone out there that we do have the Embedded Analytics community site. Just one more time talking about that. We are planning to have another virtual meetup early in 2019, and we'll talk about the Tableau conference. Sorry, we already talked about the Tableau conference. If you guys are interested in finding out more about speaking at one of the meetups, you can email myself or you can email Jeff. We're also available on the community site. You can tag up with us there, and we'll be able to get you on the list and talk to you more about speaking opportunities in the future. Okay. I think that about does it for us. Jeff, you have any final thoughts?
No, just looking forward to keeping things going and having a number of meetings once we get into the new year and generating some interest and activity in the whole embedded analytics scope, and looking forward to it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Everyone have a great week, and we hope to see you in a couple weeks at Tableau Conference in New Orleans.